So now we have with us Bianco Zafrano, who was kind enough to step in to lead the research committee when I became president-elect last year. I'd love for you to tell us a bit about yourself, and then why research committee? Why did you decide to lead that particular committee of all the ones that were on offer?
I think really the reason that I chose the research committee is that I come from a family of academicians. Actually, my father was the vice president of the graduate college and of research at Iowa State for many years. And so I heard the mantra that no one is contributing, no, that people contribute best to the world when they do a PhD, and that the lifeblood of any university is research. So I listened to that and have thought about that heavily throughout my career and found that, yes, I think the way we advance science and the way we advance any field is through research. So I have been part of research projects at Iowa State and outside peripherally in other universities, as well as different departments. Enjoyed it tremendously, saw how much difficult work it is and arduous and this meticulous, but really believe that it is truly the lifeblood of any real organization that is going to continue to grow.
And you guys had a little bit of a rough year to step in as the new chair, because we had this special SOAR grant, so the Supportive Avian Research Grant, in celebration of AAV's 40th anniversary. And so, compared to sort of typical years, was there a different way that the committee sort of thought about awarding these grants compared to what we kind of normally do every year?
Well, the wonderful thing was when I stepped into it, the research had already been done. The AAV membership had already been, a cross-section had been polled about what the most pressing subjects were for practitioners. And so the 3 subjects were there already, and that helped tremendously. And then we went back and we sort of fine-tuned the rubric for going through all the grant submissions. And I think that helped a little bit for us to go through and be objective about each one. And so we got a tremendous amount of wonderful grant submissions this year. And having all the brains that have been on that committee, as you alluded to before, was such a blessing, because everybody came at it from a different perspective and from different experience. And it was truly a wonderful experience. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I know we've had conversations on the committee before. I'm curious how you weigh in on this, and people ask this question occasionally. How do you weigh, more clinically oriented versus more basic science oriented research? We get some proposals where that's a really significant proposal, but it will take some time to sort of trickle down into something that is like directly clinically relevant versus something that is, say, a pharmacokinetic study for a drug that people want to use tomorrow or yesterday in some cases. How do you kind of weigh the benefits, pros and cons of both of those types of proposals?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I know the AAV has historically been very focused on the practitioner and how research should benefit the practitioner. Frankly, especially for the SOAR grant, the bottom line is that basic research is critical for other things to be built upon. And unless you have the building blocks of good research, you can do other projects, but if you don't have the basic understanding sometimes of transmission, of any number of things, you really can't build on it you have to go back in and fill in the holes. So I think in this year particularly, we were looking at all the grants, whether they were basic or they were practitioner focused, and pretty much weighed them evenly, realizing that basic research is truly, again, I feel the lifeblood of all research. You have to have, even though it seems mundane, it's not sexy, as you said, it may take a while for it to translate into something that practitioners can really sink their teeth into. It really is important to make sure that all the research is in fact viable and sound.
You sort of brought up the point that was going to be my next question, is that, a lot of times the research that the research committee funds ends up perhaps being a little more esoteric and ends up in research journals and doesn't always sort of trickle down maybe the way it should into clinical practice. And that's something I know we talked about a lot at the strategic planning meeting last year. how to make those resources more available. And you've been working a little bit with Bob Cook on trying to get out some kind of summaries and abstracts, and we've been talking about integrating research with social media. How do you think about sort of making the impact of the research that AAV funds kind of more immediately palpable to clinicians who are in practice?
That's a great question, and I will say honestly that that is one of our projects. And I wish I had been focused a little bit more on that. But one of the ideas is to take the research that is being done and distill it down into what the meaning is for practitioners, what it eventually and how it eventually can impact practitioners, and putting that into a digestible, smaller paragraph, if you will, into the Journal of Avian Medicine. So that is our goal, is to look at the research that is being published or coming up for publication, and taking, filtering through the design and the how and the abstract, etc., and the results, and then taking it down into a digestible, understandable quotient, I guess, for practitioners. Yeah. So that's our hope, and that's what our
takeaway message. And I think also kind of putting things in scope, right? Because almost no research is started from scratch. It all sort of comes from somewhere, right? And what are the antecedents for this research that kind of led to this question?
Exactly.
Maybe what is somebody else found something different, right? There's a lot of times that happens too, where you get different answers from different questions. So
even research that goes down and it hits a dead end, it's still valuable. Right? We still now know that doesn't work. So
and there's that bias toward publishing negative results, and that I think a lot of times is unfortunate, because then people keep kind of repeating the same studies because no one knows that someone else tried it and it didn't work, right? But it's not as fun to read negative result studies.
So it's not. It's not
unique to avian research. That is, throughout biomedical research, right? So
yeah, it's just not as sexy.
Not as sexy. Yeah. Have this question down, but it'd be great to get your kind of 2-minute spiel on that competency-based medical education program that you have. That's kind of a special project this year. Maybe you can just give like a 1-minute, 2-minute little background on that as well.
So our thought is, and the concept is, and we did this through retrospectively reviewing and polling AAV members about what are the most important things and what do they wish, and what do practitioners wish that there could be for them to learn once they get out. What are the most salient and crucial things? And we were also focusing on universities that don't have an exotics program, and there are more and more of those, unfortunately, with budget cuts. So our focus is on students and without exotics programs. We're starting with avian, obviously, and we polled what they were most interested in. And so our concept is about a 3-tier education program. We're working on tier 1 right now, and they can work at their own pace and complete it as they will, and there's CE involved. So once you work your way through the modules in the first tier, you can take continuing education credits for each module, taking a class at a university. So I've passed this class. It is, hopefully we will employ the help of our avian, boarded avian specialists to help with oversight and also tutelage in parts of for the upper echelons of this program.
That was going to be my next question anyway. So what kind of activities are you looking for help with? What can new members help with if they want to get involved in either the research committee or this new medical education effort? That would be sort of low-hanging fruit for people to start getting involved.
Great. So let me start with the research committee. Anybody can be on the research committee. And what I would love is if somebody wants to take the research papers and do the reading of them and trying to distill it down into a digestible paragraph or 2 that's pertinent to the practitioner, that would be wonderful. Yeah. And then that would go into the journal. So that would be a person that would be interested in that, would be a great asset. Yeah. And anybody can be on the research committee. Obviously, it helped me tremendously to have people who have lots of experience in research as well. Those guys are invaluable, like yourself, and knowing the process, etc., timelines and all that sort of thing. So it's a fun and very wonderful group of people.
Yeah. And I
So
think you make a good point. I think people think that, oh, I need to have done clinical research or published a bunch of papers to be on research committee. And I think we have a nice mix of people who are, university academicians who published a ton and, pathologists and researchers, but also private practitioners. And I think they give a really nice background on how is this going to actually help clinicians? Maybe not immediately, but down the road, is this an important question? And I
yeah.
think they give a really important insight into significance and innovation. So just because you haven't written a ton of journal, articles before or done a ton of funded research, your viewpoints are still very valuable on this committee. So yeah.
And that balance is what's critical for the committee, frankly. As far as the CBME program, anyone who is interested in helping to create these educational modules in any way, if you have content that you're willing to contribute, and we've had a number of people willing to contribute their content that they've already made PowerPoints for something, or lectures, or written papers, or have ideas for content, or just want to be involved in editing, oversight, making sure what we're saying is current.
Yep.
And we were obviously going to have to update these modules all the time, which is, we also think that maybe AVVP people who have recently taken the test would be the ideal folks to edit, because gosh, their brains are full. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would be tremendously valuable that way. Even if you have content, we just recently put on the Facebook, AA Facebook, specific items we're looking for, like pictures of this animal doing this, or this is any of those things are tremendous. That way we don't have to worry about copyright infringement.
And everything gets credited. So if you share your pictures, we will credit you.
You better believe it. We'll put your name right up there. However you want it in lights, we'll flash it. So that would be great too.
Cool. This has been super educational. It was sort of a 2-for-1 with Research Committee and CBME. So that was great. And I really appreciate your time, Bianca. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Ashley.